Hi, good afternoon all. Good afternoon to the hearing committee members attending today. Welcome to the applicant and the members of the public observing the hearings committee today. We will open the meeting with karakia. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, ke mā kena ke uta, ke mā taratara ki tai. E he aki ana te atikura ki te au e hoka e huhu te hei Māori ora. There are no apologies received. Everyone is here that needs to be here. Do we have any declarations of interest? No. Before we do invite the applicant up, I just wanted to note that we have received correspondence from members of the public expressing an interest to speak to the committee in relation to this application. This hearing is convened to consider an application for development contributions remission as provided for under the development contribution policy. In doing so, the committee is operating in a quasi-judicial capacity, which is different from the role that the committee undertakes when considering matters arising from council consultation processes. In those consultation contexts, members of the public have a formal right to make submissions and be heard. In the present circumstances, there is no automatic right for the public to appear before the committee. Those who indicated a wish to speak were advised that they could write to me as chair, setting out the nature of their direct interest in the matter, why their interest may be greater than that of the general public, and how the information they wish to present would assist the committee to determine the application in accordance with the development contribution policy. As the information has not been provided, I've exercised my discretion under Standing Order 15.4 to decline those requests. I also note that some of the individuals who requested to speak subsequently emailed all councillors, including members of this committee, and I remind committee members that correspondence does not form part of the hearing record and must not be taken into consideration of this application. Finally, a concern was raised through officers regarding a potential error in the public notice for this hearing. Having considered this matter, I am satisfied that the public notice clearly conveyed that the hearing was taking place, including the time, location, and subject matter, and that was sufficient for that purpose. I'd like to invite the applicant to address the hearing committee now, please. Kia ora and welcome. And while you are taking a seat, if I could just ask you to introduce yourself so that we can record for the meeting who is here representing the applicants. Thank you.
So I'll hold down that button, that's working. Great. Hi everyone, thanks for having us here. I'm Jimmy Tate Jameson. I'm here on behalf of Compassion Horowhenua Limited Partnership, which is the applicant.
Kia ora tātou, I'm Peter Barton, I'm the manager of Compassion Housing.
I'm Kerry Maher, I'm chairman of the board of Compassion Housing Limited.
Kia ora, my name's John Robinson. I'm the services manager for the Horowhenua District Compassion Housing Units.
Malolele, I'm Sister Josefina. I'm a volunteer at the Horowhenua Compassion Housing here in Levin.
Kia ora in Malolele. I'm Sister Alice, Sister of Compassion. I'm here to mission for the whānau in Levin, my mission in here. compassion housing.
Okay, well, a brief background. Can we turn that mic on? Okay, good to go. Brief background to who we are. So, as I said, here on behalf of Compassion Horowhenua Limited Partnership. So we are a 50-50 partnership between the Sisters of Compassion and Willis Bond. We purchased the Horowhenua District Council social housing portfolio back in 2017, and there are 115 dwellings there in Levin, Foxton and Shannon, and we've continued to operate them as affordable housing. We'll hear more about that from Compassion Housing and how it works, but essentially it's all led at below market rates, and we have a lot of wraparound support from the sisters to make that work for the community. I guess briefly our intention here is we are building 11 new units at Cambridge Place in Levin. I'll speak a little more about this later, but we've got a funding agreement with the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development to make that happen. So they're fully in support. It has been it's sort of challenging in this environment to make new construction happen and to provide new units, but we're committed, and we are looking for some support from council as well, which will really assist the project. But I'll pass on to Peter, Kerry, and John, who will speak a bit more about Compassion Housing and its mission and what they do.
Yeah, I'll just speak first before I pass over to our people on the ground here. I'll tell you about the operation here. But Compassion Housing itself was formed in 2000, in the year 2000, when we first took over the social housing from the Upper Hutt City Council, and our role is to manage the properties and to take care of them. We then acquired the Horowhenua properties in 2017. We now have a man on the ground here, a resident, who takes care of the properties. Our main office is in Upper Hutt. The basis of the Compassion Housing is we're a faith-based organisation through the Sisters of Compassion in Wellington, but our people that we look after, there is no discrimination at all between race, faith or colour or whatever. Everybody is welcome. The target market is the senior market who would maybe struggle to find housing in the open market. We target our rates at least 20% below market value, and rather than just provide a property, we want to provide the background support to them. They are people perhaps with less available funds, and we have a maximum amount that people are allowed as private assets. But it's a wraparound organisation. We're not just landlords. We're there, and the care of our people mirrors the ideals of compassion, that everybody deserves a comfortable and affordable home, deserves respect and be treated well. That's our background. I'll let our management team talk now about the daily operation.
Okay, I'll just kia ora, Tato. So I'll just quickly talk about Compassion Housing at a high level, and then pass over to John, who's on the ground here and makes a difference for our whānau in Horowhenua. So Compassion Housing is a registered community housing provider, a Class 1 provider. So with that comes a lot of compliance that we have to abide by, and we're regularly audited by the regulatory authority, and pleased to report that we continually pass those with flying colours. We're also a registered charity. We don't strive to make a profit. Our money's invested back into our properties, developing properties and growing our portfolio for a high need market at the moment. There's, as you'll be aware, I'm sure, there's a shortage of one bedroom type units available, particularly for older people, and we're meeting that need as best we can. There is a huge need. We're not meeting it all, but there's certainly we're certainly doing our best to do that. So, but yeah, our mission is about supporting older people, as Kerry said, putting them into a safe, comfortable, warm home for life. So if they come in, they're going to have that home until they leave this earth, so to speak. So we're proud of the work we do, and we're really proud of the work we do in the Horo Whenua. We feel we're part of the community, well connected. John does a great job at connecting, and the sisters do an even better job of connecting to the community. So I'm just going to pass over to John now to talk a bit more about detail.
Kia ora, I'm John, I'm the services manager here. We have 115 units here. They were all council housing, so maybe you know a bit about them. But Compassion Housing is the unit that the Sisters of Compassion have set up to live the mission of the sisters. Now, you may know the Sisters of Compassion in Wellington have the soup kitchen, and they have affordable housing here in the Horo Whenua and in Upper Hutt. It's all about the mission of meeting the needs of vulnerable people in our community. That mission has been going since Miri Hohepa arrived in 1860. So we are continuing that mission, and we're all committed to that vision and mission of looking after the most vulnerable. The housing focuses on the elderly because there is a huge need for the elderly, especially those who have had a damaged lifestyle, whatever. They get to the age 65 and they may have nothing left, nowhere to go, can't afford a house, can't afford the rents of the places because rents have gone skyrocketed since the last few years. We do our little bit to help who we can. We have quite a large waiting list of 45 here in Horo Whenua, and it's not really a waiting list because we tenant the most vulnerable of the group that apply. So just in the last few weeks, to give you an example, we've put in 4 different tenants in the last week or two. Some of them are living in their cars. And one guy we put in, he didn't even have a bed. He had a bit of a mattress that he slept in his car. And he walked into one of our units and he looked around and said, he'd been so long in his car, and he was nearly 70. And I mean, that to me just shocks me that this is in New Zealand, this is our country, and there's people living like that. So that's why I work for the sisters. They're my boss, and I live the vision of what the sisters are trying to do. The types of tenants we have, where mainly our biggest group are women, probably because they live longer than men, but we have 1-bedroom units, except in Foxton, where we have 6 bed sits. And men, for some reason, like the bed sits. I suspect it's got something to do with less housework. And they get in there and they get their bed there, they got their TV there, and they live their life. So that's just my personal opinion. And we have 9 couples as well. And all these people have had issues in the past, and we are now looking after them. We're a little bit different to some social housing organisations, is we have a wraparound system as well. And it can be, tenants do not have to use the wraparound. We have a little form at the start that do you want it or do you not? And most of them say yes, and that wraparound is we have a nurse who goes round, and she's a medical nurse, but she does not do medical stuff. But the beauty is she knows all the medical stuff, so she can be an advocate for them with their doctor, with the hospitals, with the healthcare, because as we know, the healthcare is sort of falling apart a little bit at the moment as well. So, and we also, perhaps more so, we have the sisters here who are, they're not here to evangelize, they're not here to turn everyone into a Catholic, they're here to support the people in their lives. And they visit all the tenants, and often, if they get They need to have contacts which other people don't have, like a farmer recently donated a ton of beetroot. That's all gone out to our tenants, and the St. Vincent de Paul also support us with food and things like that, or if we need something. We've got a lot of support here, and I would like to commend Willis Bond too. They are the partner with the Sisters of Compassion, who are, without them, we couldn't be doing what we're doing now in Cambridge Place and providing more homes for people that need it. And I've probably said enough. Thank you.
Okay, maybe Sisters Elise and Josephina, would you maybe share a few anonymous stories, or tell us a little bit about your work as well, and meeting the tenants?
Yes, our visit to the tenants is once a month to the 115, and because we are not a staff, we are volunteers. We are friends of everyone, and whoever wanted to have us in their house, they open their house, and if it's just through the door, we just talk through the door. And every week we distributed veggies to one block and food also. And that is what I see as we are sisters to them all, or daughters or whatever. We are to them, we are their friends. But we are not a staff, so we have nothing to do with office work. We are just their friend. For listening ear or anything that they wanted to talk about is really confidential with us. Whatever we talk about in this house is remain in this house, and I think that is what we supposed to do. What they have to talk to us is just remain with us. And if we need any help, then we can talk to our staff. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to reinforce what my sister put forward. It's a mission that we've been 8 years. And I don't know anybody here when I arrived here. But it's amazing the following day, the lot of support. And from that 8 years to now, we're part of Levin's community. We get to know everybody. And our real mission here is to be a good listener. Respect everybody in their little way of life. We not go there to make a big difference for each one. We walk in, respect, to be a good listener, respect them, and look. And we learn a lot from them. It's like our mothers and our grandmothers. We learn a lot from them. It's not only one way. And that's the best of the service we have here. Apart from contributing the food and everything, it's part of our service. Because if we not contribute all that's given to us, it be rotten and waste. We don't want to waste everything come to our front door. Not only the St. Vincent de Paul, the New World, the Countdown, is all delivered to our house, all the goodies, every week. And it's another big job for us to deliver. But it's not a big job, it's the well-being of the people that we can see. We provide whatever their needs in their house, especially help the family. We outreach the family too of the community, and they get to know us. It's a lot of things they thought we not part of a Masonic, the other homes. Our people move there because they are need a care. We're still part of outreach to all different homes here. So it's a privilege for us because we love our way, we love the people. And not only that's our mission. That's what Mother Obia too. is for everybody. When we first arrived here, it's very interesting. A lot of our tenants said, we're not coming here to change our faith. And I said, no, nothing to do with everybody's faith here. We here is a person to you. And that's why we part, if we Salvation Army, we part of the Salvation Army. If audit, we part of their service. We support their people when they're sick. It's just a lot of things that I don't want to explain, but that's our mission here, and we love it, and we wish, I'm sure the council will listen to our needs somewhere, because when we have the cyclones, one of the council came and support us. I forgot their name. Asked us in help to provide for us. Donated for us, and it's that's part of our working together. And some on that we accommodate them in our place. Some of the tenants we accommodate in our place. We know it's not a small big place, but how we manage, and we enjoy it for 2 weeks. All of them in our house, a little house. So that's a kind of a service that we share with you today. I'm sure it's the same service you do to the community. So I end up like that because it's enough. Thank you very much.
I just add something there. A lot of the people, particularly as I said, many of them living alone, are lonely, and to see the sisters and John fill that need by being around. You hear those horror stories of people who passed away and been left in their apartments, not been found for days on end, weeks on end. We've all heard those. Well, that's something we don't want to happen. They're there if required, and if anybody says, no, I don't want you to visit, they say, we won't visit, but we're there if you need me. So it's the loneliness of people in their latter years that we try to see that they don't get that way. Thank you.
Okay, I'll just briefly share a few sort of nuts and bolts on the specific project and what we're doing at Cambridge Place. So there are 16 units on site at Cambridge Place just down the road at the moment, and we're constructing another 11 dwellings there. It's they're infill. There's space for it on the existing site, and it works quite well because there are services there. There's roading, water, wastewater there, so we can provide those. We've got as mentioned before, there's a grant from the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, so they're able to fund half the cost, which is crucial. It is, with construction costs, it's hard making these things happen, but as we've heard, there's strong demand for affordable housing here, and we really want to try and provide more. As part of the arrangement with the ministry, the units have to be kept as affordable housing, which to the ministry means 80% of market rent, which is the maximum that is charged anyway. So it fits very well with what we're doing already. We've got the contractor there is using a lot of apprentices to help build, and it's a bit of a test case of trying to create a really efficient way of building more housing, and we hope that we can do more in the future. These are it's not an expensive build, but we've been careful to maintain the quality. They'll be energy efficient. We're trying to keep costs down for people. I mean, the operating costs for housing is pretty can be a real barrier for people. They need to be able to heat their houses, so one thing we can do is make it energy efficient, and we're doing solar panels on the roof, which will help with energy costs as well. They're also accessible, and that's something that we found with existing housing. There's often steps up to the housing, and so it's a little bit harder with elderly people, and that's one thing we wanted to do with the new houses, so people might be able to move into there are ramps up to the houses. There's a shed for a scooter to go in, or a wheelchair, so that we think that'll all work quite well. But yeah, overall, we are, I guess we're here to ask for a remission of the development contributions. We've read the policy, and our view is we feel that we do fall within the policy and what it's trying to do. We think there is a significant community benefit here. It's extremely helpful for the project, and so yeah, we ask for the remission. We're happy to answer any questions to me or any of us. But thanks for listening.
Cool. Thank you, Jimmy and sisters, and John and Peter. Appreciate it hearing from you. Councillors, do you have any questions of the applicants that you'd like to lead off with?
Kia ora. Kia ora. Nice to have you all here. Kanohi ki te kanohi, and your presence here with us today at Council. The age limit, is it 60? 65? Is it that? 65. I saw that. I'm just thinking some of our the statistics for Māori especially are low in terms of reaching that age. Would Sisters of Compassion, would you consider maybe lowering that age group to 60 for a lot of those that don't actually make it to 65? And the health statistics will tell you so. That's just one of it. Because I know I'm from Shannon, so I know of the houses, the old council flats there. We call them the kaumātua flats for the elderly. I have whānau that live there currently and have lived there previously. Positive feedback. So everything that you've shared today in terms of, I'm going to talk about the whare tapa whāo and the well-being model, taking care of your spiritual needs, your physical needs, psychological, and the whānau. I've seen that, and I've heard reports of your organisation. They've been all positive. So one question was, is there a possibility of lowering that age, especially in Shannon? And I'm not sure about the other areas. But there's been overall good feedback that I've heard from and seen with my own eyes. As an iwi member of Shannon, Ngāti Whakatere, we also provide support or manaakitanga to our kuia, our elderly that live there as well. So it would also be good to have to look into other networks to help the cause, to look after everybody. So maybe iwi partnerships within all the areas.
And on the age thing, it's something we haven't considered. It's certainly, I suppose, because the need that we can't cope with everybody who wants, even in the 65 plus market. That's one of the requirements is that at the moment they must be on government superannuation, which is 65. Something we could well consider. But yeah, as I say, in the past the properties have been filled with that 65 market, and we can't fill it all. So, but certainly, I understand exactly where you're coming from, and it's something that we could consider in the future. And I'll take it back. Happy to take it back to HQ, as we call it, and mention that.
Yes, kia ora, because I know there was one one flat there that was empty for a long time. There were a lot of unfortunately, our elderly, there's not many of them left in Shannon. Sometimes they have to move out to live with family, but they actually want to live in Shannon because that's where they've been all their lives. And the the age thing, there were a lot of people that were 60, in between that gap, 60, 65, that should have been, had the opportunity to maybe rent that house but couldn't because of that age limit. So thank you that you want to consider that, take that back to your Yummy.
Look, I join with others in thanking you for your presentation and the way that you've delivered it. In terms of your financials, what sort of a difference will 117,000 make? How crucial is it? This is separate from the debate around the robustness of meeting the criteria, but it'd just be interesting to know how significant that amount will be to you in terms of your financials.
Yeah, sure. It's pretty material there. It's to give you a bit of a sense of the project cost is sort of around 4.5 million. So it's not you can see it's a reasonable amount there, but it's not it's not at the level, for example, of the Ministry of Housing funding, which has really been absolutely critical to unlocking the project. But it is material, and it's a project like this. It doesn't take much in terms of variations, issues during the build to suddenly blow out contingencies. So it is, yeah. I hope that makes sense. I'm sort of speaking in broad terms, but I'm not saying that this is the critical piece to it at all. But it is very important, and the support is certainly appreciated, and we feel we are providing that community benefit and justify the policy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got two questions. Hi, I'm Sam. Thank you very much for the service that you provide in the community. Just building on the question from Deputy Mayor Allen, I might just frame the question slightly more bluntly, if that's all right, which is, what happens if council doesn't grant the remission, either in part or in full? Like, what can you tell me what it looks like, and what does it put pressure on the budget? What's the outcome?
Sure. So in terms of where we're up to, I guess we're committed to doing this. I guess to speak a bit bluntly in response, we haven't budgeted for any development contributions. So relying on the policy there, but we know there's some risk. We're in a hearing today. We're about, I don't know, a third of the way in, and we'll have to look at budgets carefully. We will see it through. We're committed. We're all committed to doing that. This is important, and we're going to make it happen. But it might mean as we get into the final details of what we can spend the money on, finishes and the landscaping, and we'll have to have a close look at things if the finances are tight. Does that sort of answer the question?
One more question, if that's all right, Mr. Chair. So, you'll understand that our policy obviously has those criteria and exceptions, but it also has got a fundamental principle around that growth should pay for growth. And so I guess I'd love you to just answer the question around how would you respond to someone in the community that's a bit sceptical and says that council shouldn't grant remission, even if you met the remission criteria, basically because there's a wealthy developer involved? Like, what's the response to that? If you can just help me.
Yeah, sure. There is, and I guess you're getting at the nub of the ownership structure and the fact Willis Bond is involved. And so maybe share a lot more on that to make it clear. There's a small group of investors who are involved on the Willis Bond side, and they're there basically because it's a good cause. There is a small return; it's not significant, and I can say, hand on heart, if it wasn't a good cause, those people wouldn't be there. Raising the funds is has been challenging, but there are people that are willing to be involved in this sort of thing. So I think it's one of those things. Without the support, particularly from the ministry who talked about the grant, we just couldn't make these things happen, and there wouldn't be another 11 units going in there. So it's look, I suppose for council, this is council's decision, not ours, but it's making a call on what you want to support in the community and what's important to the community. I appreciate there'll always be skepticism about it, but we do think it's important. We're confident we're delivering a really important service that's needed, and I'm here. We're all here for that reason.
Thank you very much for the frankness and clarity of your responses. Very helpful.
Yeah, thanks for coming today. Just on the Ministry of Housing funding that this proposal's received, what level is that?
It's half of the project cost. Yeah, it's also and it goes with conditions around the use of the housing and keeping the rentals at affordable levels. It's tied with that.
John, this might be more directed to you. In terms of, you talked about a waiting list of, quite a number. What is the process about people applying for a unit in the space around Horowhenua? And if you like, can you sort of give me a bit more sense of the need that is out there? And I suppose that would, I get the sense that those that do get units in that space stay there quite a long time. They're generally extremely happy with the service that is provided. So I'd imagine you don't have huge turnover, and if we've got this growing sort of number that are applying, is that what's driven the need for the extra units in your mind?
We've interestingly had a little bit of a blip lately, because a lot of the council residents who have been there a long time are now actually dying, or they're going into care. So recently we've been, and that's why there's been a delay at the Shannon, because there's only so many of us. We've had up to 15 vacancies of units empty because of people dying, and I'm assuming it's a blip. We're putting people in, but then we put somebody in not so long ago, and a month later he went to hospital and has died. So you can never tell, because if you're most in need, you're often the most damaged. So, but we do have long term, and nobody gets booted out. So it's all about health, or like one recently went to Australia because all her family have joined the exodus to Australia, and they said, come with us. So they're going to look after her in Australia. So there was another vacancy. So it's really hard to say who gets on the list. That's people who are desperate. They hear it from Age Concern or places like that, and they ring us or email us and say, do you have a place available? And we will say either yes, we do, we're having a viewing on this date, or not at the moment, but we can take your name and we'll get back to you when there is a vacancy. And as I say, we've had a rush the last few weeks. We filled 4 vacancies last week because it takes a while to clean them up as well. Because if you've been there since 2010 or whatever, there's a person in Cambridge Place, she's the longest serving resident. She started when they were built. So, and she's still there. So when she goes, you can't do too much big maintenance when they're there. So we wait till they move on, and then we do a revamp of the whole place. So am I answering your question? It's a bit hard to...
Well, I'm just thinking about, I'm just trying to get a sense of the actual need to...
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
you know.
Certainly there is a need.
Yes.
Yeah, I might be able to add a little bit there,
Yeah.
John. So typically there'll be people who bring us up who have a desperate housing need. So John mentioned about elderly men sleeping in their cars, people sleeping in garages, people couch surfing, those things that are not uncommon to anywhere in Aotearoa. So, but what we are seeing a lot of at the moment is people who are in rentals who are paying $450 a week. If they're a single person on a pension, that's a huge whack of their pension. They virtually have, $50, $60 left after that. So they're struggling and they're looking for more affordable rentals, which is where we come in. So we're supposed to set, as an absolute minimum, we shouldn't be any more than 80% of the market. But in reality, in Horowhenua, a lot of our flats, a lot of our tenants are paying about 40% of the market rate. So, we're doing really, really well. And we try and, so we're balancing sustaining, the costs of maintaining our asset with sort of sustaining people be able to live decent lives in our accommodation. But that's the growing trend. So there's that urgent kind of need for housing, and often those people will get placed before the people who are in accommodation, generally all the time. But yeah, the growing trend is the private rental market is just unaffordable for single pensioners living on a pension. So, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's all right. Oh, live stream. Oh, I better shut up. Just on your question about a wealthy developer and the not wanting, the issue for me is you don't go into social housing to make a profit. There is no profit in social housing because you're limited on your rents. Willis Bond, I believe, and I don't really back me up on this, I hope, Willis Bond are a friend of the Sisters of Compassion, and they are helping the Sisters of Compassion live the mission of providing help to the most vulnerable people in the country. They're not in this for profit because, I'd be building high fly, down Oha and do a Wayne Bishop thing, but it's social housing we're talking about, so there's no profit there. So it's a bit unfair to say, oh, you're a wealthy man, why do you need a rebate? Okay, sorry.
I guess just on that, the reason I think it's all worked so well is we have the sisters and Compassion Housing who are absolute experts in the space and providing social housing to those in need, and we can help with funding and the property expertise, and we come together 50-50 partnership, and it's been a great experience. Worked really well. We're very committed. As John said, there is a long-standing relationship, and one of the board members at Willis Bond has been involved in Compassion Housing for a long time as well. So there's a relationship there that makes it work, and it's been great.
Just one other aspect to community housing. We need to have the people like Willis Bond as part of it, because one of the requirements of government is that we've got to be financially stable. So, there's both sides to the equation. We've got to look after ourselves as well.
All right. Look, thank you for your time. We'll now move and hear the officers' report, but Jimmy or whoever, we will invite you back after we've questioned officers to give you a final opportunity to address anything that's raised through officer questioning, or to just give us your final pitch from there. Cheers. Okay. Well, welcome Bella. Welcome Lisa back. We've already seen you at least once today. Chamber's yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Bella Blinken and I'm a Senior Consent Planner here at Council. I am also the reporting officer for this hearing. I will take the report as read, but wanted to take this opportunity to reiterate the communication circulated to the committee this morning. The applicant has applied for remission under both sections 3.6.1.1a and 3.6.1.2a of the Development Contributions Policy. However, the report addresses the application under 3.6.1.2b2 in paragraphs 14 and 19 of the report. On reflection, we are now of the view that the proposal better fits under the criteria that the applicant originally applied under. So 3.6.1.2a sets out the criteria as: the development is a social housing development undertaken by a community housing provider that is registered with the Community Housing Regulatory Authority or any other partnership where Kāinga Ora or Ministry of Housing and Urban Development has entered into an agreement to provide social housing or affordable housing. So Compassion Housing Limited is registered with the Community Housing Regulatory Authority and has also received funding from the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. I would also like to draw your attention to the following key points. The site already contains residential housing that has provided housing for elderly residents for many years. The site was once owned by council but was purchased by Compassion Housing Limited in 2017. Demand for one-bedroom units remains high, with the housing register documenting that there's currently a demand for 84 one-bedroom units. The proposal meets the criteria of 3.6.1.1a of providing significant community benefit by providing 11 one-bedroom affordable housing units, which will be let at 80% of market rental rates. The proposal also meets the requirements of 3.6.1.2a. Compassion Housing Limited is registered with the Community Housing Regulatory Authority. We note that the policy does not preclude community housing providers from undertaking development in partnership with others. Officers consider the intent of sections 3.6.1.1a and 3.6.1.2a to be met by the proposed activity, so the Hearings Committee can consider remitting the development contributions, reducing the development contributions, or applying the full development contributions assessed for this proposed activity. The panel will need to weigh up the social good provided by the proposal and the cost of any remission against Council's priorities of being future fit, going for growth and financial discipline, and we are happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much, Bella. This is your email prior to the meeting was very helpful. And so just to go on the record, that the one of the criteria that was considered was section 3.6.1.2b, but based on some of the information and some of the responses today, it wouldn't meet that exception. So we are limited to those two that you've outlined.
So technically it still would meet B. It was referenced as an incorporated society, however they are a charity. So it still would meet B. We just feel it fits better under A. So yeah, B2 can still apply. Yeah.
It was probably what I was referencing there as limbs 1 and 3 in B, which is our applicant developer is not funded substantially by central government, and the third, which is financial records, show that the proposed development would not be able to proceed without a reduction or remission. I just want real clarity what's ruled in, what's ruled out. So that's my.
So with that, we're relying on the or, so it's I or to or yeah.
And given the policy allows for remission or reduction and does not prescribe the extent of remission once eligibility is met, how would officers assess whether a partial remission could proportionately recognise the significant community benefit while still reflecting some contribution towards infrastructure demands caused?
Given that the policy doesn't have clear criteria for a partial remission and when a partial remission might apply, that's at the discretion of the panel.
Well, Lisa, thank you. Just so everybody's aware, this is infill, right? We're not actually adding any more infrastructure into the project other than what is already there. So it's just in addition to the network that's there. We've heard today about other measures that are happening within the district. So I just want to, I suppose, for clarity for everybody that may be listening or anything, we're not actually adding any infrastructure to this project other than what is already there at the moment.
Yeah, so just the individual connections, but no large infrastructure. No.
Mr. Chair, can I just have two follow-up questions? Because so first, and follow up to Mayor Burney's question, there actually still is a connection fee that they pay, don't they? So there is a connection fee. It's just that this is actually the provision, the DC related to the provision of infrastructure. So
Correct. Yeah.
And the second question, which I suspect you might need to defer to a financial colleague, is around paragraph 22 of the agenda paper. So none of the recommendations, well, we've got the recommendations in terms of the options available to the committee, but paragraph 22 talks about if a remission was granted, what's the funding source? And so do we need to make a decision around that today, or how do we deal with that point?
Mr. Chair, Mayor Burney and committee members, no, you don't have to make a decision today. It's generally you're passing a resolution to adopt a decision that you make. We are indicating to you that we have two mechanisms to support any or enact any decision you make. But those, to be honest, those decisions would be made toward the end of the financial year when we know the full situation of the financials.
Right, do we have any more questions? If not, I'll ask one more. I'm just offering the last floor. Look, do officers see scope within the existing policy to adopt a more graduated approach to remission in response to current infrastructure and affordability pressures without undermining policy intent? All past decisions that up to this point have granted full remission.
I think the current policy is what it is, so there isn't. I guess there's no scope for additional guidance or anything under the current policy. But we could look in the future, if council directs, we can have a look at whether the current policy needs a rewording, and go through that process if that's decided. Has that answered the question?
So I'll ask a follow-up. So essentially it is within the discretion of the committee to decide that scope should it consider a partial remission.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you, Bella. Thank you, Lisa. I'll invite our applicant back to the table for a final statement.
Okay. Firstly, were there any further questions that came out of that? In particular on eligibility, I know I spent a long time looking at the policy because it's important for all of funding applications and budgets. So if there are more questions on eligibility, very happy to go there. Probably to pick up the Mayor's point as well, to the extent it's relevant, that we do feel that this project does have a very low impact on infrastructure costs. We're fixing up water and wastewater pipes through the site. We are putting in stormwater detention tanks to achieve stormwater neutrality, and the residents themselves, they don't have a lot of impact, we feel, on infrastructure and community services. They're very self-sufficient, and as you've heard, Compassion Housing and the sisters look after them really well. We think they're probably low impact from a development contributions and growth perspective. I guess in terms of this discussion on full remission or partial remission, we have, as mentioned before, we've budgeted on the basis of a full remission, and that was sort of our reading of the policy that is what would happen. And yeah, I guess we value the work we do here, the partnership with the community and with the council, and we do think this is something that council can make a meaningful contribution to the project, and we would certainly appreciate the full remission, and especially as we look to the future and being able to meet the demands in the community, which we all hope not, but I suspect will probably grow with a growing population. So that's it from us. But yeah, thank you everyone for the care you've taken reading the materials and your questions, and for hearing us out. And I'll leave it to you.
Look, thank you, committee. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for officers for answering said questions, and to the applicants for speaking to us. We're now at a phase where we can look to move into deliberations, and I'm just kind of wanting a quick nod of the head to indicate that you're comfortable for us to continue to make deliberations in public. I'm seeing 5 nodding heads, so that is cool. So this is a bit new for me, so I'll take Councillor Allen's lead on, Deputy Mayor Allen's lead on this. I understand that essentially, unlike a council debate, we have a conversation around what our viewpoints are as to where we're sitting, and then we will eventually reach consensus collectively on a way forward. I think the first question to answer is that one around eligibility. And so what I would suggest that we do is potentially we answer the eligibility question first before we move into a discussion regarding full or partial or none, because we'll make that decision first up. So if we're comfortable with that, can we potentially just indicate your position around eligibility, and then we'll work around and get opinions from there?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And in terms of the process, first of all, I'm delighted we do it in public. I see no reason not to. On the issue of eligibility, I think the case is very clear when we look to it. I hate all these numbers, but the 3.6.1.1 and the 3.6.1.2, the framework for eligibility, clearly the criteria has been met in my view. It's around in summary, around affordable housing project by an approved provider, the community well-being that we establish as where we acknowledge council should be playing a part in that, and around affordability. So are there funding sources available to make this happen? And the report clearly indicates the 2 means by which we can fund the project. So I speak in favour of it meeting the criteria.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I also agree with Deputy Mayor Allen. I was very impressed with Jimmy and the team being really frank and clear about the application and the project, and that's helped satisfy me that there are at least 3 grounds under the policy which could apply or provide the basis on which we make a full or partial remission decision. So, I believe that are eligible, and there's 3 grounds that apply.
Also very look comfortable with the process and the fact that we've reached, I think, an ability to be able to move forward and discuss, that full, partial or none. But I definitely think there is sufficient evidence that the criteria has fully been met, and look forward to the discussion.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that it does meet the criteria to be considered.
And I also tautoko support the sentiments of our fellow councillors and Mayor that it has met the eligibility in that respect. Kia ora.
Yeah, look, in my personal view is I do also concur that eligibility for full or partial remission has been met. And so we'll move the discussion on and would invite a brave councillor to start the discussion around their position on full or partial.
It's, who wants to say no to a very laudable charitable enterprise like this? I note that over half the cost of this is already taxpayer subsidised, over $2 million. It's also been demonstrated, I think, that the cost on infrastructure is possibly negligible. However, it kind of, in the end, someone has to pay. And if this isn't met from the developer, it has to be met from the ratepayer. Just how real those costs are, I suppose, could depend on your point of view. These are the kind of things I'm mulling over at the moment. Also, in terms of setting precedents for this kind of development, there's a consideration there that I'm considering. But I'd be interested to hear what other people have to think about that.
I'm happy to stick a stake in the ground and believe that we should endorse full remission. There are a number of factors that have influenced that. And maybe the first is the fact that I'm extremely thankful that council doesn't own this property anymore, that we made a brave decision 7 or 8 years ago to actually sell off the properties because there's absolutely no way that council could afford now to be part of an investment of this significance, nor not being a social housing provider in the first place would probably limit that anyway. I'm struck by obviously the debate or discussion is around the value of the social good versus the funding pressures that we currently exist under. In terms of precedent, we have set precedent before in terms of waiving development contributions for another social housing provider. So regardless of what the financial pressures that exist in the community, then we saw value in what they were providing, and I see equal value for what the Compassion Housing is providing. And I know personally through quite a lot of contact with different tenants in that space, the value of and safety and security that those tenants have had since they've been in that place. They have absolutely, in most cases, thrived and in fact feel very supported and nurtured in that space. And social housing will always be an issue, regardless of whether we get on top of it in a short term. We know with our growing population, and as mentioned, the pressures with single units or single people living in trying to rent in the current market is virtually impossible to be able to sustain. The value of being able to provide units that are below market level in renting and where they get the support and need of different parts of the community, I think is extremely valuable. My final thought is around the impact of on the infrastructure, that it is virtually negligible, and I see some real value in terms of doing what we're doing, and I'm comfortable in supporting full remission of these development contributions for this project.
Yeah, look, Mr. Chair, I support the comments from Mayor Burney and a number of points he's already made, which I won't repeat, so I just want to add some additional comments. First of all, the fact that we are dealing with a non-performer. Compassion Housing has a track record. We know their record. We know what they have delivered. Secondly, to acknowledge from their presentation and from the report itself, the specific way in which they are meeting a real need. It's about acknowledging the high demand for the one-bedroom units. So those 11 units, the high demand, 57% of the demand, if I read the report correctly, is specifically for the one-bedroom unit. So we have here a proposal which is really sharply focused on real need in our community. As Mayor Burney says, social housing is generally a very real need, but within that real need, there is such a targeted response to that need in this particular application. I guess my question then is, if we are going to look at a partial remission, why are we doing so? It's met the full criteria. We know about the financial impact and how that can be managed for council. So if there is an argument for the partial remission, I need to hear and understand why we would not simply follow our policy, which clearly says that it meets the criteria, that it is affordable for council. It can be dealt with through two options, which will be dealt with through the long-term plan process or whatever. And for those reasons, I join with Mayor Burney in supporting a full remission.
Kia ora tātou. Tēnei te mihi atu kia koutou e hara mai I tēnei rangi ki te kōrero mai pāna ki te hauora o te tangata. I just want to thank you, the Sisters of Compassion and Willis Bond for coming today for this kaupapa, important kaupapa, which takes care of the well-being of our elderly in Taitoko, in Levin, as well as Shannon and Foxton. So I just want to mihi and say thank you for coming. I support the full remission as well, based on, as Councillor Allen has said, your reputation, not just here in this Horowhenua area, but also down in Wellington. I also know of the works that you do in Wellington, travel to see whānau regularly. I have had whānau who have been in different predicaments, I guess, vulnerable predicaments, and your organisation provides stability for our kaumātua, for our elderly folk, senior citizens. They shouldn't have to be sleeping in a car. They shouldn't have to be struggling to live with others or couch surf at that age. And these are the reasons why I support the full remission. And it's also part of Council's way of actioning something that we support. We would call it in Te Ao Māori, the word aroha. Aroha has many meanings. It's not just love, it's an action word. It's a doing word. And so based on that, I support the full remission for this kaupapa. Kia ora.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, I want to thank again the applicant, Bella, and actually Deputy Mayor Alden for your comments today, which kind of helped me get to my starting point. Because I was a little bit all over the place with this. And so my starting point is that we have a development contributions policy that we crafted, adopted, and it has a policy decision in it that says if you meet these certain criteria, you are eligible for remission. So that's the starting point. We've obviously passed the gate in terms of it meeting the eligibility. And so then I'm left with the challenge you put, Deputy Mayor Allen, which is, so given that position, given that policy decision, why would we consider partial? Like what, so expanding on that, I also take into consideration why wouldn't we provide a full remission? And so some of my questions today were grounded in trying to almost wear a black hat and play the role of the naysayer, because there are naysayers out in the community and understand that. And so I think the responses today helped me and hopefully help the table and should help the community understand that about what the venture is and the parties involved in that, and that this isn't a wealthy developer looking to increase their margin or make a profit. This is about a social good, and so I'm really satisfied that, and I'm really comforted by the responses that were provided, and I'll get that there'll still be people out there, no matter what the decision that this hearing makes, that they'll be sceptical about that, but based on the evidence today, the information that we've been provided, I'm really satisfied that a full remission is appropriate and can be justified and would withstand any scrutiny in terms of our policy and also our decision making and reasons that we've advanced today. So I'll support my colleagues for all the reasons that they've outlined too.
Great. Thank you, councillors. Look, I think the eligibility for remission is accepted here. The work that the Sisters of Compassion and what they provide our community is clearly stated. 7% of our most immediate need would be met through this project being delivered. For me, the question is the appropriate extent of remission. So Clause 3.6.1 explicitly allows council to remit or reduce development contributions and does not mandate full remission in all cases. Officers have confirmed that they do not prescribe benchmarks for full or partial remission, and they leave that to the discretion of the hearings committee. Significant community benefit satisfies the threshold for remission, but does not in itself dictate a 100% remission outcome. Additional infrastructure demand is acknowledged as uncertain rather than absent and supports a proportionate response. Officers noted that the partial remission better aligns with our growth pace for growth principle while still recognising social benefit. And I guess in terms of that is the piece where a partial remission is clearly different from a full remission, is that policy is also written to provide this table with the ability of addressing the very real concern around who pays for growth. Precedent informs but does not bind future decisions. So adopting partial remission policy is evolution of said policy rather than policy reversal. Both full and partial remission require funding responses, but partial remission reduces scale and it improves the equity outcomes. Partial remission remains policy consistent, balanced, and responsive to current financial and infrastructure pressures. So given that the discretion sits with the hearings committee to decide on this scale, we have the ability to decide on that scale of 100% down to 50%, down to 40% as to what is appropriate. And I do know President has said that we've funded 100% the 4 previous applications that were assessed under various versions of this policy. But it doesn't restrict us from making a different decision. That being said, I've kind of read the count on the table, and I think it potentially stands somewhere as 4 to accept a full remission and 2 against. I'll provide.
Mr. Chair, sorry. It would probably be helpful if there is a view that it's a partial remission for a state to be put on the ground in terms of where you sit, because that would be where I would be interested if there was further discussion to be had. Understanding what your proposal might be would be useful.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to make the same point. Also, the opportunity to Councillor Barker should he wish to speak, because so far we haven't heard from everyone, but absolutely agree that where there is a different point of view, I think it would be very valuable to hear the reasons for it.
Happy to share that. I've listened with interest and attention to the views of the rest of the panel. The thing that stands out for me, though, is that half of the costs of this project are already funded by the taxpayer. To me, that's a significant reason to decline the application, based on the fact that someone pays, and if these costs aren't met by the developer, ultimately they're met by the ratepayer. So that's where I'm sitting at the moment.
Can I ask Councillor Barker a question, if that's all right? If reflecting on section 22, so paragraph 22 of the agenda paper, which talks about the ways in which it could be funded, it talks about two options, which is either it's ratepayer funded or it's potentially funded by other developers, so further commercial-based developers that come. If you had some comfort around how the remission was to be funded, would that potentially change your view in terms of if it was funded by other developers that are yet to come versus the ratepayer at large, or even if it was a 50-50 split, does that change your position?
That's an interesting proposition. I imagine future or further developers would have an opinion upon whether they should be picking up the tab for it either. So ultimately we're just kicking the cost can down the road, and in the end someone has to pay.
Councillor Jennings, you sort of just have put the challenge out to put a stake in the ground. So for me, I'd probably start somewhere in the 70% range of remission. What this achieves is that it acknowledges that there is a level of demand, that there is a need to pay for growth, but the higher weighting also acknowledges the significant benefits to the community that this project would actually deliver.
So just to be clear, that would be at 70% of the assessed figure of 117642. That would be $82,349.40.
Mr. Chair, I'm keen that we do make a decision, and I wonder if we can default to the time-honoured tradition of having a vote. So on that, if you're prepared to let democracy speak on this issue, I'm prepared to move that full remission be granted.
Councillor Jennings.
Are we voting, or are we just having a discussion about that? Or everyone had a discussion about it?
We're in your hands, Mr. Chair. I personally feel we've had the discussion, but if people want to have another chat, let's bring it on.
My sense is potentially Councillor Jennings still wants to explore a little bit more.
Yeah, look, I'll just speak very briefly. I mean, I had, when initially receiving the agenda, started to think about what a partial remission would look like, and so the team had, at my request, gone away and assessed this at different levels. So as an aged care room, 11 times aged care rooms, 11 times retirement units, just to give me a sense of how they might be assessed if they were kind of considered different. And to be honest, that didn't help too much, except in looking at 11 aged care rooms, which these aren't, but in terms of what I was just trying to find a sort of a connection between what these units are kind of there for in terms of that social housing. But that came in assessment of $23,860 for DCs. And so I had been open to the possibility of a partial remission, but to be honest, based on the discussion, the comments of my colleagues and the responses from the applicant, I'm comfortable that a full remission is appropriate, and I think that the cost here can be absorbed, and yes, there is a cost to other people. Someone always pays. Remembering that once these units are established, they will also become ratepayers, and will be contributing to interest costs, depreciation costs, all of those other costs. So, I'm comfortable to support the full remission.
All right, so we'll quickly go around the room. The motion is on the table, moved by Deputy Mayor Allen and seconded by Mayor Burney in relation to accepting or granting the 100% full remission of the DC, whatever it's called.
In favour.
Against.
In favour.
In favour.
In favour.
Against. We will call that motion pass and carried. Thank you to committee members for attending today. Thank you to officers. Thank you to the applicants and the members of the public and other elected members who have chosen to join us for the afternoon entertainment, maybe. We will end with karakia. Ke whai ke kia te tapu ke wate e te ata ke ture ki whakatata ai, ke ture ki whakatata ai, home hui tā